Joining us now with reaction, two men who have seen this violence face to face. The aforementioned Rudy Peters, the Republican congressional candidate from California, attacked by a knife-wielding Trump hater just on Sunday, along with House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Of course, we all know over a year ago, Congressman Scalise himself was shot, has endured multiple surgeries during that congressional baseball game, not so far from where we're broadcasting tonight. Both of you, it's wonderful to see you for this very important topic. Rudy, I want to start with you, and then we're going to go to Congressman Scalise. Tell us very briefly what happened on Sunday that all Americans must know, given the tenor of this debate and discourse today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Laura. Sunday was just another day at the fair and the street fair. Wonderful people in Castro Valley. Great job by the chamber. I had another gentleman running for Assembly District 20 here in California with me. All of a sudden, we're sitting behind the table. It's late in the evening, and we hear somebody screaming, "F you, Donald Trump, F you, Donald Trump." We kind of look up from the table. He's got his middle finger extended, and he's walking by our booth, and we pretty much didn't say a word, just watched him walk by, kind of keep an eye on him. The next thing we know, he stops, turns around, and says, "I'll show you," and he pretty much bum rushes the table. On our table, we had a coffee cup that had flags and ink pens where we're registering Alameda County voters. As he picks up the coffee cup, I kind of get away from the table and start going around to the front of the table. He picks up the coffee cup, rears back, throws it at us, misses it, hits the ground, breaks us. We're pretty much chest to chest at this time. I grab him, throw him to the ground. I don't strike him. I don't even fall on top of him. I'm just standing over him and backing up. He busts. He had a beer in his hand in glass bottle, and people were screaming. Children are screaming, and it's pretty crowded with family. And he jumps immediately up, reaches in his pocket, pulls out a knife, and he's got it over his head, and he's screaming, "I'm going to kill you, MFer. I'm going to kill you." So he's dancing in a circle, and I can see his thumb trying to get the blade. He's pushing on the button to try to get the blade to come out. So at that point, I'm pretty much fearing for my life. So I just looked around and grabbed kind of a sign at another vendor's booth, a little plastic, kind of like a sandwich board sign, and held it up because I thought, when this lunatic gets this knife out, he's going to kill me. So somebody finally screamed and yelled, and it stopped, and he turned around and left, and I went back to my booth.
This is insane. I mean, Rudy, this is insane. First of all, we're so glad you're safe. Glad the switchblade was not operating, or he didn't know how to operate it. But Congressman Scalise, of course, I thought about you. The first moment I heard about this, read about it, I thought about you and everything you and your family have gone through over this past year. Your reaction to this entire trajectory since last year to today, given what's happened.
Well, Laura, first, it's great to be back with you. And there's no place for this in American politics. The foundation of this country is about free and open debate. We encourage it. We ultimately placed into the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, to allow people the freedom of speech to even criticize their government, but not to resort to violence. We actually resolve our political differences at the ballot box in America. It's what we've always been about. And this violence, the insightfulness, the call to arms, in essence, amongst liberals has to stop.
Well, the left is saying, Congressman Scalise, that, well, Donald Trump started this. It's his divisive rhetoric. No. It's a life-or-death situation for Americans. They're going to lose their health care. Women are going to lose their right to abortion. It's a life-and-death situation. Well, we don't want you to, resort to violence, but as Maxine Waters said, push them back, find them where they are, go to restaurants, gas stations. Essentially, don't let people operate like Rudy was doing in public.
There is no but to that sentence, and you pointed that out, Laura. But look, what this president did, when Donald Trump ran for office, he promised that he would actually fight for those forgotten men and women. There were millions of Americans that had been left behind, that weren't even part of the American dream because they had just been discarded by the previous administration with a horrible economy, with crazy regulations, things that were killing manufacturing in our country. And you literally saw parts of our country being eviscerated. The middle class was being eviscerated. And Donald Trump ran and said, I'm going to stand up for you. And his policies are actually following through on that.
But they don't care, Congressman. The left,
well, we understand that.
Way too many of the Democrats. Eric Swalwell came out in a tweet, and he condemned the violence toward Mr. Peters. So that's good. We haven't heard very much.
We need to see more of that.
Yeah, we haven't seen much from
Democrat
Maxine Waters
leaders,
and Schumer and Pelosi. And, where are they? We got a congressman, a congressional candidate being attacked with a switchblade, yelling "F Trump," and we're just like, oh, it's just another day. And you were almost killed. They really need
to be called on to call out this kind of violence. If this was going on the right, you know what would happen, Laura. Every mainstream media outlet would be reporting this, calling on each one of us. They'd have microphones in our faces. Will you denounce it? And you know what? I would denounce it. I denounce anything that happens on either side, but you don't see that enough from the left, and it needs to happen more. But they need to be challenged. You know, where are these liberal talk show hosts that yell and scream and rant and rave if their incitement is actually leading somebody to go and commit violence and resort to violence? That's not what this country's about.
It's by any means necessary. And everyone watching tonight, you have to understand that were it not for a switchblade not operating and Mr. Peters having the wherewithal and the physical strength to push this guy back, you might have had your throat slit. And Congressman Scalise, you came very close to dying, and it could have been a mass slaughter at that baseball game that was politically motivated. I do not think it was adequately covered as such, as political violence by the American media. And I'm very upset about what's going on. And Republicans have to be careful with their rhetoric. The president, everybody has got to take it down a notch. It's way too hot, and debate is great, but this is obscene what's happening. Mr. Peters, a student group opposed to a speaker on college campuses. You think about what happens at Berkeley and so forth. Check this out. Do you agree or disagree that the student group's actions are acceptable if they resort to violence to prevent a speaker from speaking? 81%. 81% disagree that the student group's actions are acceptable. That's a good deal. They shouldn't be violent. And I think young people, frankly, with their heads screwed on straight, most of them know that. Rudy, close it out.
Yeah, exactly. This gentleman was 35 years old. He's not a child. We didn't see him earlier in the day. It's not like we had a dialogue or an issue or a conflict where he discussing policy issues or stances. I don't know what was in his mind, but you know, the latest report is his mother was with a Democratic club group there in that area, and she was.
Rudy, we're out of time, but I'll tell you what it is. I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's make it really clear. And Congressman Scalise knows this. This is hatred toward Donald Trump and his agenda. That is it. It's not about the country getting better. It's not about blue-collar workers, wages going up, opportunities for African Americans. It's destroy him by any means necessary, by using any tool, legitimate, illegitimate. They do not. Most of them just don't care at this point. That's
and it's
how bad
hatred
it's
of democracy, too, Laura. Yeah, they don't respect the things that this country's founded upon.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much tonight.